So how do you find these projects that nobody else wants, nobody thinks will happen? How do you get the financing? How do you find the teams? How do you put it together?
It's a lot of questions.
No.
Well, um, we don't have a mission. We don't have a business plan, and we don't have a global vision. Um, we are, on one level, opportunistic. We see a lot of deals and a lot of properties offered, and we try to look for something unique in a property that nobody else sees. Because by definition, if my vision is the same as the marketplace's, then I'm not going to be the top bidder. I can only be the top bidder if I have an angle that nobody else sees. Um, I think the best example of that is even though it's not hospitality, are the Richard Meier Towers at Perry Street. West Street at the time, which is late 90s, was godforsaken. There was an ambulance storage facility and a tire repair shop. And the average condo in the marketplace was selling for about $300 a square foot. We had a vision that we would bring the Park Avenue buyers downtown, and we would expand Greenwich Village to the west. We got a hold of Richard Meier just by total coincidence.
Happen to have his number?
Yeah, one of my, Phil Suarez, an old friend who was involved, was a friend of his. And we just had the vision of creating something that the world wouldn't see. So we were able to be the top buyer for that site. Now I'm trying to remember the rest of your questions. There were 9 pieces to it.
Well, it's like, yes, it's the Rodney Dangerfield.
Right.
Yes. Well, sticking with this though for a minute, and going into working with architects and designers, and there was that movement, right? The Starchitects of the time, Richard Meier, and bringing those people to the forefront of residential development and hospitality development. How do you seek out designers? There are a lot of us in the room. I do know that you bring out the best in a team that you work with. How do you find people? How do you find the talent?
Well, I guess step one is looking at the work that people have done. That's step one. My wife has an expression: if you pass a store and you don't like what you see in the window, you really don't need to go inside. So you have to look at the past work. The rest of it is very personal. We tend to get very much involved in our projects, and we work closely with our architects, design teams. Flexibility is a big part of it. Everybody great, and I'm sure everybody in this room can turn out and give their client a great product, and here it is. But with many clients, it's very personal, and with us, it's extraordinarily personal. Somebody who's a bit insecure may take comments in an offensive way and get rigid. Somebody who's comfortable and confident in what they do can take feedback and input. And sometimes it's a tweak, and sometimes it's take it back to the drawing board. And the last part is the vision. And the vision is something that is hard to detect, but we see it. And we've come, and again, I'm going to go back to Richard Meier. When we first met with him, we gave him a plot plan. We were sitting in his office, and while we're talking about the project, and by the way, he wanted to buy an apartment to move in there too. Half the conversation was about his apartment. And there are 2 trapezoid lots that catty corner across the street, and he was sitting there like penciling away. And after about 20, 25 minutes, he turned his sketch pad over, and there were the buildings. He had first seen the plot plan, and literally in 20 minutes, he sketched the building, and if I showed you those sketches and the final product, there's virtually no difference. So the vision is a big thing. They have to get it. We don't do cookie cutter things. We do oddball. We do white elephants that nobody sees. When we built most of the things we built, which today I guess are commonplace in boutique hotels, at the time, for each and every project, we were called crazy. We just want to put together a team that share our craziness.
You talk about flexibility, and I appreciate that so much. And you always tend to move a project in a direction for the better, absolutely every time. And yes, we are all challenged and encouraged to go back to the drawing board. You moved the core of a building once. How far along was the project when you came in and you said, okay, we're going to move the whole core of the building, design documentation is done, everything is ready, structural is done. Tell us a little bit about that one. That's a good one.
Well, I'll start by saying that we have a big advantage in that we don't have institutional partners. We work with our own capital, and we really have nobody to explain things to but ourselves. And the second part is that we don't take on projects that are so big that we can't buy ourselves out of trouble. The project that you're talking about specifically, we developed a concept called the pod hotels. We built 4 of them here in New York, just very, very small rooms, smaller than the micro hotels of the Moxies of the world. And so we bought a Salvation Army shelter on East 39th Street. It was a landmark building, 20-story building that we built a 365-room pod into about an 85,000 square foot building. And the building had existing elevators, and to save money, we decided to work with the Corps and keep the little elevators. And as the project was moving along, we had gutted the building, we had framed the building, we were ready to start actually working on the interior of the rooms, and I had a panic attack one day saying that we can't operate a 365-room hotel with these rickety little elevator shafts, and they really don't belong there. The front desk should be there, they belong there. So literally, we sketched it out in the office a little bit and handed it to the architect, who of course thought we were crazy. We handed it to our designer, who loved the idea. Because the architect was worried about budget, the designer wasn't. Right. And of course, it cost time, it cost money, but I can tell you, today running that business, if we had not made that change, we would have been really suffering.
And that really speaks, I think, to, and I'm sure all of you have enjoyed many of Richard's properties, and the service, right, to your point, most of us can design something that's acceptable and lovely, but the service that you all bring, and beyond the service, but really that unique experience to curating the general managers, curating the guest experience with the entire team, the food and beverage staff, and what the offering is. And that is truly, I believe, your great personal vision. And it can't, come from just great travel and everything. But so where does that really come from?
So much of a hotel experience is about the people. You could spend $100 million in your building and have the wrong staff and it's destroyed. I remember I have this saying, the one thing you don't want to do is guest comes up to the desk with a complaint and you say, no, Mrs. Nussbaum, you're wrong. Your bathroom is operating properly. It doesn't work. The right answer is threefold. I'm sorry, you're right. What can we do to make it better? I visit every property I operate in New York at least once a week. I sit with the manager, I sit with the team, I say hello to all my staff. I encourage my manager to sit with his sub-managers and the sub-managers to the people on the front line. It's all personal. I think regardless of pay packages or benefits, people like to know they're working for an organization that really cares. I have we call our management team the Roach Motel because they check in, but nobody checks out. And we've had people working for us for decades and decades. We do a manager's dinner once a year, and there's a big conversation. Oh, I've been here for 27 years. I've been here for 18 years. But rarely does anyone leave. And the philosophy is in a pyramid, never blame the base. Anything wrong with a pyramid comes from the top. At least that's our philosophy. And the way I treat the people I deal with, and obviously I don't deal with every employee, I believe the people I deal with treat the people under them the same way, and perpetuating that leads to the right service. And you cannot, an employee can do their job in the strictest sense properly and destroy you, or elevate you to the highest level, doing things that you've never explained, that they've never been trained to do. And I think that's the key to hospitality. And the best comment I get, and I get it all the time, oh, I was at the Bowery Hotel, your staff was terrific. To me, that's more important than I was at the Bowery Hotel, the wonderful lobby and the room was designed. I want to hear your staff was terrific, my experience was great.
Do you think that, that really does, I know it resonates with the guests and the team, where the last group was really talking about the difference, relationships between brand and between owner, operator, developer. Does it help that you do it all?
It really helps that we have no brands. Or that
You're anti-brand.
Or we are the brands. And we've actually chatted with the brands, and we've had conversations with the brands buying one of our brands. And I have an old friend, Stephen Heyer, who was at one time president of Starwood, one time president of Coke, and he's a brand guy. And he admonishes me all the time. He says, "You've built 20 brands, but you've only done one of each one." Right. I think there is, having heard the previous discussion of the conflict between developer and brand, I would say one thing, just sitting back there, as I was sitting in the chair, I would say, no, it's the developer. You work for the developer. There's no question about that. I understand you need to satisfy the brands for your career, but the developer, that's the guy who signs the contract or writes the check. We happen to be the developer and the brand. And the financial controllers and the back of seat designers and the operators. Yeah. So it really makes life simple.
Well, and you also are so wonderful about being able to keep up the properties and keep them fresh, and yet have a real authenticity that happens. People, I can tell you, having worked with Richard, for example, at the Mercer, people get wildly offended if you change a chair in the lobby, right? Like, people are so attached emotionally to your properties. If a general manager changes, if somebody leaves, people get really upset by this. I do, as a guest. How do you handle that type of, that fan club that you kind of have out there?
Well, it's interesting. I describe people emotionally attached to various properties having one of three reactions to a change as a chair in the lobby. Some people like it, some people dislike it, and 1/3 thinks their lives will be irreparably damaged. I'll tell you one thing, and I'm debating whether I should name a name, and I've decided not to. So I was having lunch with a fellow who has been developing boutique hotels parallel to me in the same universe, in the same sphere. You could probably figure out who it is. And I told him, somewhat offensively, not meaning to be offensive, that everything he's ever built his entire career has now been converted into another use. Every wonderful hotel that was spectacular is no longer there. And every hotel I've ever built in my life is there operating at its peak performance ever. Well, with one or two exceptions, I shouldn't say ever. Virtually everything that I've ever built. You mentioned the Mercer Hotel. We acquired the Mercer Hotel and began the design of the Mercer Hotel almost 30 years ago. And we did switch designers midway through, actually. And Andre flew to Paris and fell in love with Christian Leon. And all of I mean, the Greenwich, again, we made the deal with De Niro to co-develop that 20 years ago. And we have maintained our property meticulously, but we really haven't changed them. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm going to take this property that was good in 1990, and now we're going to bring it up to the 20th century and making it clean and crisp, and maybe making it, from a technological point of view, you know, more relevant. But the spirit and the essence of the properties we keep. And I will tell you that, listen, I don't know where we're going to be in a decade from now, but so far we've managed to really keep the integrity of all of the properties. And again, I'll go back to the Mercer. In the lobby of the Mercer, you know, we're doing a cosmetic reboot of the Mercer Hotel now. And I'm in the lobby of the Mercer walking through with the design team and the architect, and all of a sudden I hear, Mercer man, and I turn around and Chris Rock is sitting there, and he goes, don't mess with this hotel. Don't mess with my Mercer.
Yeah, no. And I think that that is just a testament to also, you know, the teams that you put in place. And just going back to that for a minute, because I know Philip Truelove, I will bring, has, I don't even know how long he's been with you.
Since 1894.
Yep, probably. But I think what's very unique about Richard's properties is that you name names. You don't name a brand. You know, you really get to know the people who are there, the general managers, the front team, the front of house team, the back of house team, the people at the spas. People have favorite housekeepers. I mean, this is real. It is a cult almost. And so I guess what was the decision to, you know, put these faces with the property as opposed to the big message? I mean,
well, if you're talking about the staffing,
yeah.
I mean, it starts with the general manager.
Yes.
Because again, with the analogy of a pyramid, the pyramid has to be constructed of people who select people who they want to work with. So it really starts with the general manager. But I will say that we have been very patient, or I'm not sure exactly what the word is. We don't put our staff together until the very end.
Right.
There are many people and many companies, many developers, many brands who hire up teams and staff long before. Yes. And our primary mission is not design oriented. We save a lot of money doing this because we don't have people on payroll when we're not operating the hotels. But we're always keeping our eye out for really good people. And we work really, really hard to bring our staff from within our organization. And I tell, frequently we'll have somebody who's looking to leave from a mid-level position to step up somewhere else, and I'll say, be patient, sit around, we'll find something for you. And virtually every one of my general managers started out working, in a position, in the mid-level, and some people were, desk clerks, who stepped up all the way.
You place a great emphasis, I think, on every role. Like every, that the housekeeping team is as important. The team that was speaking earlier too, they talked about the back of house and how important that was to the front of house guest experience. And I know that you all take great pride in that design effort as much as the front of house effort.
Well, I mean, we try to treat it in an integrated fashion. I'll give you an example. Once a week, I go by the Chelsea Hotel, which is launching and still not stabilized. So we have a lot of conversations about room inventories and rates and and how we market this and how we offer this. But I'm not sitting with my GM, and I'm not sitting with my head of sales, and I'm not sitting with my revenue manager, but I'm sitting with everybody from the top till the person who's actually making the reservations. Because I want everyone to, A, be involved in the conversation. You know, I want the man or woman who's taking the reservations to actually hear our thinking about how we want to distribute and how we want to reserve. I want it to be an interactive process, and I want everyone to think that they have a vested stake in what we're doing here, and that it's a team sport.
He sets the pace personally for everything, I can assure you. I am in many meetings with Richard, and he really gets his hands dirty often, and it's so appreciated. And I think it's a reflection, obviously, of the success. A little fun fact that I'm sure none of you really know about Richard is that this is his second career. Richard was an MD, and legend goes that he got bored of surgery. Right. No pressure interviewing you today at all. You know, you are so accomplished and have really set the standard and on the pace and of boutique hospitality in the world. What do you think is next? Like, where are we all going? What jobs are we looking for? Who is going to be developing fun things, and what does the future look like?
Yeah. Well, I guess when we started doing this, we were oddballs. And when I say we, I don't mean my organization. There were 3 or 4 of us out there doing the same thing, very incestuously with their employees, designers, architects. But now a lot of what we do is becoming very standard, and there are boutique hotel chains, obviously, and many of them. And now there are small room chains, and there are high-end boutique hotel chains, and everybody wants this experience. So I don't know where the next thing is. I think the next thing is somebody showing me a piece of property, a building that was the Bowery Hotel was a dormitory. It was a failed dormitory. When I say failed, the developer had his permits taken away because he had no right to build it where it was, what it was, how it was. It was too big and it didn't fit in and it wasn't entitled, and we had to jump through hoops. But we said, that's a great little corner there, you know. Part of what we look for is building the right product for where it is. And what that product is within us, I can't tell you. We have no vision. We have a vision when we see something and we say, now I can figure out what to do with it. I think it's very important not to overbuild a product in a B location and not to underbuild a product in an A location. And it's important to instinctively know when to throw a lot of money at something. That's really important. And when to hold back and say, this is all we can do with this. I remember that I built an insignificant tourist hotel in 1992, and sitting there with our team, I said, you don't understand, we're never gonna get more than $100 a night for this hotel room. We can't add this or that. On the other hand, my partner, Ira Drukier, and Robert De Niro, who were personally hands-on in the Greenwich Hotel, they went to town. They went to town in selection, in time, in budget, and we had no qualms because we didn't think there was a ceiling there. And frankly, Sean has had a great time in the Chelsea Hotel. Yeah. Which I think what could have been our Dunkirk. Yeah. That could have been that could have taken us down. Every obstacle imaginable in the human race was there. So I guess answering your question is almost retrospective, because I can't look so far forward because I don't have that vision. I can only tell you our most recently completed project is the Chelsea, which is a throwback.
Yeah.
Either to 1870 when it was built, or to the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, when every literary rock star, you know, and thespian luminary lived there.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm not sure I could keep up with the rest of the world who's now caught on the fact that people want unique experiences. So I don't know, maybe my next thing is yesterday. Or maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, or maybe tomorrow. Well, I know our time is up. Richard, thank you so much. Again, really just, if you have a moment, and he sticks around, he is the most fountain of information and influences me all the time. Please say hello, and thank you all so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Richard.